Welcome back, guys, to my channel. A little bit of a different setting today. I'm here with the fabulous Chelsea Brooke Ward, who, if any of you don't follow her on social, these are all of her social links, and there's loads of information on her in the comments below. But basically, Chelsea and I met many years ago, and we're going to share our story with you today. But we actually now work together. She's a barrister at Part Square Barristers, and she specialises in employment law. Obviously that's what I specialise in, so we work really closely together. But the exciting thing that we're doing here, living our best Zen life, by the way, how nice is this little setting? We're here in Portugal on a yoga and surf retreat, and I've actually been writing a book together. We're almost finished. So what we've done is we've taken pretty much a week whilst we've been here, obviously writing the book, doing a bit of yoga, surfing and chilling out, but also chatting about some of the issues in the legal profession. And whilst we're together, we thought it'd be a really good idea to record not only a podcast for Chelsea's podcast, which again, the links are in the comments, but also for you guys to share our experience when it comes to getting into the legal profession, what works, what doesn't work when it comes to work experience. So, Chelsea, hello, hi. Thank you so much for doing this. I think both of us have got really similar views when it comes to work experience and really just helping people get into the legal profession. So I think probably the best place to start is for us to just tell everyone how the hell we met.
Oh my God, it feels like a lifetime ago, but in the
How
same...
long ago was it?
Oh my God.
Is it eight years ago?
It must be 8 years ago, yeah. Because I was a second year law student.
And you 8 or 9 then, yeah, because I was about 1 year qualified.
Yeah, it was my first ever work experience placement, and I can just remember walking into the office and they were like, "Oh, you're following Jodie," and I walked up to your office and I saw loads of shoes and just
loads of shoes. I was like me.
Underneath the desk, and I was like, she's my kind of girl. And I can just remember being in awe. And it's really funny actually, because I used to say to myself when we were going to the employment tribunal, and I used to look at you and I used to think, I want to be just like her. I want to be just like her when I grow up. And then obviously now we've touched base again, I'm like, oh, she's actually the same age.
So we actually realised that we're the same age. It's just that we're at different stages in our career. I qualified very early. I was only 24 when I qualified and went straight from university. I'm also the youngest in my year. So for me, I was like bang, 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 straight to qualification. But for you, that was very different, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I actually didn't want a career as a lawyer. I actually wanted to be a dancer. So I
remember that actually, yeah.
Yeah, I was a professional dancer before coming to the law, but then fell pregnant and that career was done with. So then I thought, well, what can I do now? And I didn't want another career where, it had a lifespan.
So you just chose to be a barrister?
Well,
just a second thing.
Yeah, well, it's a lot like performing, isn't it? The
it is actually,
part,
it's a bit like acting. Yeah, that's true.
And
that's
that was that, and obviously Legally Blonde. But yeah, I also wanted a career that wasn't or didn't have a lifespan. Obviously, having that career cut short, I wanted to ensure that the next career that I went into, I wasn't going to be, flitting from career to career. So yeah.
And obviously, you talk about work experience. Obviously, that's how we met. That's a really long time ago. How important do you think that's been in your career, having had that experience?
Oh my God, absolutely. It's immeasurable.
In what way?
Well, one, I feel like my career has now grown because I've not got your assistance, but obviously you instruct me, so that's a client.
We work together,
we work together. But also the things that I learn. So when I first came to a career in law, I wanted to be a criminal barrister, as most people
That's
do.
what I wanted to do when I went to the bar as well. I was like, I'm going to be a criminal barrister, I'm going to fight the good fights.
Yeah.
And decided against it.
Well, when I went to the employment tribunal with you, that sort of something clicked in me then. I thought, actually, I don't know whether I do want to be a criminal, whether I want to be a criminal barrister. Now, because of that work experience, I actually found my calling. And I
like that shift as well. It's really hard, isn't it, don't you think? So going back to the work experience point, when you first do work experience, how hard is it to even know what you want to do? It's unbelievable. Even when I called to the bar, working afterwards as a paralegal, I'm still going, I don't know what I want to do. And you kind of expected that you should know. And I think you like you say, you get a calling. And I had a similar thing where I did some work experience and then ended up working actually in a law centre running a discrimination project. Completely off the beaten track of what you would ordinarily think as a newly called barrister. But that for me was my calling, and I was like, I want to be a discrimination lawyer.
Yeah.
That is what I want to do. I want to do this right now. And actually, it was the year that the Equality Act came out, so I was in a really fortunate position. But isn't it interesting how, because was it a discrimination case that you came to?
It was actually, yeah, it was a sex discrimination case.
Oh, that high value one.
Which is quite ironic. But also, it's not even just like sort of the area of law, it's obviously what we've done afterwards. So obviously we're writing the book together.
Yeah. Well, let's go back. So we've had the work experience, then there was an award that I think I ended up presenting to you.
Yes,
that came first.
Yeah, so I ended up winning or scoring the highest.
She's so humble, not even talking about this bit.
I ended up scoring the highest marks on the employment law exam.
And I teach that module in the LPC.
Yeah.
And also I used to teach the law degree, hence why we were sponsoring it at the time.
So I got an employment law award from you.
And then you worked with me when I first set Thrive up in 2018, 2019.
Yes.
And that was before you became a barrister.
It was,
wasn't it? Yeah, before you got pupillage.
Just before I got pupillage.
Yeah. And basically, I set up Thrive, and I was like, I need some help. And you massively helped me on a huge trial with the massive disclosure thing. So again, we came back into each other's life.
Yeah.
And then I kind of from there really, we've just
it's just gone from strength to strength from there. Yeah. But that's the importance, isn't it?
When you're that relationship.
When you're doing work experience, you're making connections, and one of the things for me is, particularly when I now take mini pupillages with me, about building the connections. Some people don't keep those connections going. So that was obviously one of the things why I wanted to start the Diary of a Pupil blog, because I don't think people sort of appreciate what lawyers are doing when they offer their time.
Yeah, this is a really good point, and this is actually what triggered our want to do this podcast and YouTube, because obviously I'm the managing partner of my own firm, and we are a small firm. We only set up 4 years ago. It was just me. Now I've got about 20-25 people. I lose count because there's always people joining. But the point being is we're a small but fast growing firm, and we actually have a very agile model. So arranging work experience is actually very difficult for us, because one, we have very limited manpower. Two, most of our staff work from home, and so there's certainly, for us, it takes up a lot of time and effort, but we're really passionate about helping people to get into law. And actually, we receive hundreds of applications all of the time. So we're looking at putting a more structured thing in place now. All the lockdowns have stopped and all of that. But I think it's been really challenging for so many people to get work experience. I'm certainly being spoken to from people at school level who are not even getting responses from law firms. So when law firms do then, or chambers do then give you work experience, there's a bit of an expectation, I think, from the firm that one, you'll turn up, because the amount of people that don't turn up. Yeah. Two, that you'll be prepared, you'll be engaged, you'll ask the right questions, and you'll get stuck in.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. I think sometimes when we do work experience, I found like some people will be really they'll have an expectation of Ally McBeal or Legally Blonde or Suits, and it's not how it is. And I think everyone needs to lower their expectations out, because the reality is some days we're on a computer all day, and that so when I know that that's happening, I will plan for a task for that individual to do. Some law firms will let you just photocopy all day, so it's a really fine balance.
And the worrying thing about that is that most of these people that have those expectations have already done their undergrad degree, and they're probably on the postgrad degree, and if they don't know that that's sort of the how it works in a law firm, then how do they actually know that they want to be a lawyer?
Yeah, and that I think is really worrying, because there is definitely a glamorous profession in the media when it comes to the legal profession, but the reality is, sometimes I'm just sat with fake tan on, a bun on my head, in my dressing gown, typing emails to clients. Or
this is probably not the right place to say. It's true, we are in Portugal.
But it's true. But we are. It does look glamorous. We're in Portugal. However, this is a holiday. This is supposed to be a holiday that ended up being work. But the reality is, especially when you have a more agile model, I can be, on a train somewhere, doing some work. I can work while I'm travelling. I can work wherever, because that's the model of my firm. Now, some firms are different, and they will require everybody to be in the office, so you're going to meet a lot more people. Some firms are bigger, smaller. You've got to in my view, get experience in a range of different types of firms, but also be mindful that people are working remotely, and be mindful that people have billable hour targets in a lot of firms. We don't have that, but in a lot of the time when you're giving that time up, be really respectful of those people who are supporting you, because I do it because I know how hard it was to get experience, but there's a lot of people who go, nah, just don't want to do work experience, and a lot of firms are just saying no.
Yeah.
And what you don't want to do is apply for experience, not turn up, not be engaged, cause more problems than actually hindering the situation, can actually be really detrimental for future people.
Yeah. So for me, obviously, I had a very difficult time trying to get pupillage. 1, because I'm obviously not a stereotypical barrister. 2, I was a mum. 3, I'm a woman. 4, I've got a really common accent. So
From Yorkshire, lass. I am, lass.
Yeah, so I've got a really common accent. So for so for most chambers, that wasn't attractive, and I had a very difficult time trying to get pupillage, but I won my first ever mini pupillage, which is quite...
Just to explain, what's a mini pupillage, because some people watching might not know what that is. Obviously, in a law firm, we call it work experience or a vacation scheme, but if you're a barrister...
Yeah, so when you qualify as a barrister, you have to get a pupillage, which is essentially like an apprentice year, where you do 6 months shadowing another barrister, and then you do 6 months of your own cases. But before you get a full pupillage, you're expected to get what's called the mini pupillage, and essentially that's between 3 to 7 days shadowing another barrister in a chambers. But they're just as hard to get these days.
Well, if not harder, because there's less of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's and actually, I suppose the difference is with the mini pupillage, it's going to be in court most of the days, because they're going to chuck you with somebody who's in court, right?
Yeah, but it's not always the case. Like, some barristers, like myself, I do quite a lot of out of court work, so sometimes papers. I'm just sat there reading papers, so the issue still arises. But my first ever mini pupillage, there's a story about that, but we'll come on to that in a moment. But I mean, Nadeem Bashir was my first ever mini pupil supervisor, and he was absolutely amazing. And he said to me, if you ever want to come back, just give me a ring. So every other week I'm on the phone. I've got 2 days free, I've got 5 days free.
Yeah.
Can I come? I ended up having a mini pupillage with him for 4 years.
Yeah. So if we talk about like prep of mini pupillages then, and same for work experience. So before going into work experience, you've got it. Yes, you've got it. Amazing. How do you make the most of it? How do you prep for it? And then we can talk about kind of how you then maximise that impact once you've left.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to prepare for a mini pupillage as in terms of the work that you're going to see, and also, so for me, I didn't know who my supervisor was going, mini pupil supervisor was going to be. Sometimes you might, but I definitely recommend researching, sort of senior members of chambers, because what they do try and do is they try and put you with some senior members. That's not always going to be the case, but definitely be researching the chambers, the culture of the chambers,
and the type of work that they do. Because the amount of people I've taken on for work experience, they're like, can I see this kind of case? I'm like, we only do employment law. And why have you bothered applying it? Because then that seems to me as though it's very scattergun, and you're not really that bothered where you are, you're just trying to tick a box. So I think you need to seem genuinely engaged, and you need to be prepared in the sense that you come with pen, paper, and the ability to just get on with it, rather than I suppose sometimes there's a bit of an expectation of, I'm going to turn up and there's going to be this magic bullet and I'm just going to get a job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I would say that my mini pupil supervisor said to me, because he always used to say to me, like, you're so well dressed. Obviously I just had a suit on.
Oh yes,
and I used to say to him, well, what do you mean I'm so well dressed? And he was like, you won't believe the amount of people that turn up with like jeans on, and to me I was like horrified, because it goes without saying that you turn up with a suit. But one thing that I would say that I think, because just moving the story on just a tad. So I went for a mini pupillage with him for 4 years. He ended up becoming my actual pupil supervisor. So that goes to show how important it is to make such a good impression. And one of the things that he did say to me that made the good impression was I made a note of everything that happened.
My God, this is the biggest thing for me. When you're telling someone how to do something and they write nothing down, it gives me anxiety. Why are you not writing it down? When I was a junior, when I was in work experience, when I was training, any of that, I wrote every single thing that anybody told me as much as I could write down, because that person is giving their time, and for me that's a sign of respect, but also I'm there to learn, and conversely, individuals now come with work experience, are they here to learn, or are they ticking a box? And so that is a subconscious thing for a lot of people. Even once you get past that at a junior level, write everything. I still write everything down now.
I think you can tell straight away whether somebody's there just to put it on the CV or whether they think they're going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
You can tell straight away by the questions that they ask, by just the interactions, the enthusiasm.
And it's also things like, you might be on a case and something comes up and they're like, I'll research that for you. Or, do you want me to go get you a coffee? When people ask you, do you want a cup of tea? That for me is a sign. One, in an interview, and obviously not asking the cup of tea, but moving the cup afterwards, like, do you want me to do anything with this, to put it away? And when people start work, just generally asking people, do you want a brew? And I think that is a real sign of someone who's a bit of a keeper. And that sounds ridiculous because you're thinking, don't you need a law degree? And don't you need to... But these are characteristics of individuals that you're either like that or you're not.
Yeah. For me, I think now I'm in practice, and trying to offer people, because as I say, I had a difficult time trying to get pupillage, and my pupil supervisor, absolutely amazing, he gave up so much time, and I don't think I realised, I mean, obviously I was grateful and obviously I appreciated it, but I didn't fully appreciate it until I started offering other people work experience.
And you appreciate the time that goes into it. That is the crucial piece.
Yeah.
Because time is everything. Obviously we're lawyers, we bill by the hour, that's how the world works. And when people are giving their time for free to help others get into the profession, it's about that mutual respect of that time that is being given, because obviously they're giving their time up for free to do the work experience, we get that, but equally the firm don't necessarily gain anything from doing that, or the chambers. What they're doing is they're trying to help the younger generation to get the experience that they couldn't get.
Yeah, and so one of the things for anybody that does follow me, so with Diary of a Pupil, I was trying to get, because obviously with everything going on with COVID and things, there's not been like mooting competitions and things like that. And this is how sort of the conversation between me and you started. So I wanted to put on a mooting competition online, and I mean, it took so much time. Obviously, I practicing at the same time, but the amount of emails that I got saying, I don't have time to stay for 3 hours.
And we have time to put a free mooting competition on for you.
Yeah, well, honestly, it was like
That's
a
really
slap.
sad, actually.
It was like a slap in the face, I'm not going to lie, because no, I don't have time to sit there for 3 hours, because that was 3 hours away from my daughter, because it was obviously on a night. Because I was in court all day. So I'd sat there for 3 hours, to help.
Well, and the rest, all the prep, everything else that goes into it. That's really sad though, isn't it? Because you think that's what puts people off offering these initiatives that help other people to get into the profession.
Well, it certainly put a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm not going to lie, that it makes you feel, and you sit there and think, well, why do I bother? But not everyone's going to be like that, and we need to think about people.
Which is why we're doing this video.
And I just hope that even one or two people take away from this, be appreciative if you are being offered work experience. Grab it with both hands and get the best out of it that you can.
We had an amazing girl in recently, and I went into the office the other day, and she'd written this gorgeous card and got us this lovely box of chocolates. And I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, but I barely saw her, but I made sure that I checked in with her because I was working remotely, and she just wrote the most loveliest card, and she was like, can I come back in the summer to help? I don't mind. And she was just so supportive. I mean, I was chucking things like she started doing slides for presentation, she did some legal research, she drafted blogs, she really wanted to get involved, she didn't just want to watch, and she did it to such a high quality. I was really impressed, really impressed. And that, it's those little touches. I'm not saying that you have to go buy people gifts, and you don't have to be extravagant, that is not what I mean. It's more around, how can you show someone that you do appreciate that time? And it might simply just be a thank you. Just a thank you. That's it. Some people don't even say thank you. Some people have left before the end of the work experience, never said a thing, and then said, well, it's not what I expected, so I'm just not coming back, and they just never even said they were going. And so that kind of thing is really sad, because I just think, well, there are so many people who want that spot, and you took it. And there are people who deserve it more. And so that for us is why we're changing the way that we do work experience to a more structured application process, which there's due to the volume of applications, that's the way to do it. But I wanted to ask you, so obviously we're writing this book together. Going back to the story of how we met, so you came to me with this idea about drafting a book, which we can tell everyone about later on in another video probably, but we can give a bit of a tease now, in that it's about valuing discrimination claims. Obviously that's what we both do, and it's something that Chelsea's, it was your idea, and then you came to me about valuing the claims, and then we've developed the idea further, and now we're also building some technology, and we've developed the book even further beyond the original ideas, and it should be ready to publish in summer. But part of that process, we decided that because of the lockdowns, people hadn't had work experience, and what we did, which I actually I can't believe we got that many people in the end, but what we did was we posted on social media and we said, does anybody want some work experience to help us with some research for legal cases? And we had several thousand people apply.
Yeah.
Can you remember?
Yeah, I got
And we went on
like...
social and I was like, oh my God, there's so many things on here, we're going to have to whittle this down. So then we invited people to a Zoom call. We must have had about 10 Zoom calls in total.
Yeah.
Of those 1,000 people, I think by the end there was 4 people helping, or 5 people, and most people just didn't respond.
No.
And it was honestly, all these people will get an opportunity, 1, for us to review their CVs, 2, any help with applications, 3, to be named in our book if they're any of the summaries that they've produced from case law ends up in our book. I mean, what an amazing opportunity for individuals at that level.
Yeah, and do you know, out of those 4, there is...
They were amazing, weren't they?
Yeah,
they were really good.
And there is still some that's sort of emailing saying, do you need anything
else?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And people go, can I still do this? And when the tech's ready, can I help with that? And it's not that... It's more that they're interested in the development and the way, the innovation that we're creating, and that gives them something extra.
Yeah.
It will make them stand out. If they can say they contributed to a legal book before they were qualified, I mean, wow, I think that's amazing. I would be like, that would, to me, would stand out on a CV as an employer.
And the thing is, you know, getting involved in more things, it might take up your time. Yes, it might be inconvenient, but when you go to an interview, the more that you've got to talk about, the more likely you are to be able to answer questions that you might not know are coming.
So true.
Yeah.
And also, experience doesn't have to be in the workplace.
No.
So one of the things that we did as well in lockdown was we did remote work experience where people joined some teams meetings with us, and then we allocated bits of work and then they got some feedback. So it wasn't like proper legal work, but we allocated tasks that were hypothetical situations to help them develop their legal skills. We gave them stuff to do with marketing, with blogs, with research. So all areas that you would need as a lawyer, we gave them little tasks so that they could say they'd done it on the CV. So even if it was just a day or 2, we were able to facilitate that because we created a structure to do that. So you know, you don't have to go into an office and physically watch someone do some work. There are other ways, like getting involved in podcasting, books, research, offering to research stuff for barristers, or take notes in a hearing for somebody. You know, stuff like that. That I always used to be like, I'll take notes for you. Oh my God, if someone wants to take notes for me, it'd be amazing. Because I've really actually struggled taking notes, and it's not something I'm good at, but I knew that they needed it.
Yeah, and it's about creating an impression and a lasting impression, and a good one at that. So you know, the more that you get your name around within the legal profession, which, by the way, is a very, very small world.
It is a small world. I mean, hence why we've climbed about 10,000 times.
But the amount of times that, I mean, I'm not on the pupillage committee at Park Square Barristers, but the amount of times that I've got an email from people that are saying, oh, you know, so-and-so's put your name on their CV, what are they like? And if they've done a good job with me, I'm like, do you know what? They're actually fabulous. They're really good. I'd really recommend them for interview. And then those people have gone on to get an interview.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's those little connections that you keep. And so I suppose, so we've got to the point where we're at, like, okay, so we've got the work experience, we've made the most of it during the work experience, we've made a good impression. Then what next? Because then it's that keeping connected. So, like, you know, connect with them on LinkedIn. Maybe arrange to, or ask if you can come back another time. You know, in a, you know, is there something else? Is there a big case they've got coming up that they need help with? Stuff like that.
Do you know one thing that annoys me, that makes me feel like the person is not interested? So if I've had somebody with me, say for 3 days, and that they can't come for any other reason, that doesn't annoy me. But if they've seen half a case,
and they don't ask about
the end. How can you live life with 3 days of a case? I mean, you know what?
But also, as a lawyer, you're just so intrigued. Like, and we've had cases where we've helped each other, and it's like, oh, what happened in that case? What happened in the judgment? Because, you know, when you're genuinely interested, it's something that you just want to know the answer to. And I've had people do work experience before, and they've said, can you email me the judgment because I won't see the last day, or the judgment might have been reserved. and they say, oh, I really want to know the answer to that, you know, that the decision or the value of the claim.
I think I did that with you on the
Yeah, I think it was you. It actually was you.
Was it me?
There have been other people. But no, seriously though, I think that is, for me, that was the last thing. So then when I set up my firm and I was like, who can I call upon to support me on an ad hoc basis? And I knew that you were looking for work because you were doing self-employed consultancy work before you got pupillage. I was like, oh my God, I'll ask Chelsea. And, you know, you didn't have loads of experience, but I was like, well, I can train her, it's fine. And we worked together on it. And I think, you know, because I knew that you were a good person, you were interested and you really cared about employment law, you know, you're not always going to care about the areas of law, you know. No offence to someone doing tax law, but, you know, it's not that exciting. So for some people, but also you're not in court and that kind of thing. So kind of tweak it depending on the areas. Obviously, we're talking about employment law and that's our experience, but the principles of being interested and being engaged and being grateful apply.
But also, you know, and like you say, you're not going to be interested in every area of law, and you might get, you know, 3 days mini pupillage doing something like tax law, and you aren't interested. But just be polite to that barrister or that lawyer that's given their time to you, and say, you know, I don't mean any disrespect about not getting back in touch, but I've realised that this isn't an area of law that I want to do. I would respect that more than you just.
And I don't want to waste your time.
Yeah,
that's what I'd prefer people to say. Yeah.
And then at least if somebody says to that person, oh, you know, what were they like?
They were honest.
They were honest.
Yeah, they were honest. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we had someone who did that, and they were like, they actually said, oh, I don't think laws for me, and actually, you know, it was kind of the first work experience, and I didn't really want to do it anyway, and someone kind of pushed, and they were really honest, and I was like, that's fair, that's really fair, because now you're not wasting my time when my team are trying to help you develop your skills when you don't want to do that. So I think that's really, really valuable, because don't forget, one of the most important qualities of a lawyer is honesty, integrity, and you know, and being dishonest is a huge issue in our profession. It's you get struck off for that.
And not only that, say for argument's sake that you do get 3 days that you're not really interested in, you know, still make a good impression, because if you do turn around to that person and say, you know, I'm not really interested, they might turn around and say,
maybe,
they might turn around and say, well, what are you interested in? I can put you in touch with so-and-so, or I can put you in touch with so-and-so. Yeah. It's about, you know, making a good impression.
So that they do want to give you to somebody else. Yeah, definitely. This has been so much fun. We could literally, I mean, well, we have just chatted for a whole week together. We could chat. We don't want to bore everybody. So let's just summarise and give our top 3 tips each for everybody on getting work experience and making the most of that work experience in the legal profession.
Yeah, so if you get work experience, 1, make sure you dress smart. 2, make sure you're courteous and respectful and appreciative of the person that's giving up the time. And 3, follow up.
Yeah, I'd say stay connected, be organised. If you say you're going to do something, kind of follow that up as part of the be organised bit. But also be really respectful of people's time. So, you know, if you're doing work experience with someone, and one of the things I always offer to do is review the paragraph within someone's witness statement. Speaking like a true lawyer. In someone's CV, and rather than, you know, don't just email your whole CV to somebody and say, can you review this? Say to them, look, I've done these 5 bullet points which summarise the work experience. Could you check that this properly reflects what I've done with you? And I think that is really respectful of someone's time, because 1, they won't mind doing that because you're showing that you respect their time, and 2, that you're actually giving them the opportunity to see whether or not you have reflected it correctly. So it's about honesty again. So that piece, I think, is a really, for me, it's been a really important one, where people have gone, can you just review this little bit? And I'm like, oh, actually, they really respect that. So that was a really, really long 3 tips.
It was. And I've got one more. Have fun.
Yeah. And if you get invited to socials, go. Go to the socials because you'll speak to loads of people. Don't be shy. But yeah, no, it's been really, really good to chat, and let's do another one of these for students in the next couple of weeks. Let's have a think. If there's any suggestions that you guys have that you want us to talk about, anything from, you know, getting work experience to what it's like to be a lawyer. We're going to do a couple of day in the life bits as well. But we're going to, you know, just share as much information that we can. Please like, subscribe and share on the video, on the podcast, on the YouTube, all of that, because we have got so much new content coming out, and you'll obviously get a sneak peek of all the book stuff. So all of our Chelsea socials are here, and also in the comments there'll be loads of links that you can click on so that you can listen to the podcast as well. Thank you.